Welcome back, Amy. You are our third time repeat guest. I love it.
Oh my goodness, I feel so special. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I was just saying we haven't done an interview in a while, so you're my first one back. So bear with me if I'm a little rusty and like managing conversation flow and questions, but I'm
Oh, it's
excited to
gonna be
chat.
it's gonna be great.
Yeah. So we're heading into the DCA launch. Super exciting. Of course, I'm always a huge fan of DCA, having taken it myself, totally turned my business around and changed everything for me. I've told that story many times. I'm curious how you're feeling going into, I don't even know if you know off the top of your head, like what number launch is this for DCA?
Oh gosh. I was thinking we've had the program for 3 years, but we've launched it a few times more than that. So I'm
Yeah.
going to guess maybe 5 or 6.
Yeah. Okay.
And yeah, it's a big deal. So it's so funny you bring that up because I was thinking and talking to some students the other day around this idea of live launching and evergreen launching and which one should they do. And I'm a big fan of having a live launch in your business. I feel like it creates so many benefits for you and your students, but I'm also a really big fan of evergreen. I love both models. So
Yeah.
as I get ready to open up the doors for Digital Course Academy, it is a different kind of energy. It is a different kind of focus. Like
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, game on. I just came off of a 5 week sabbatical, so I cannot complain. But it is like I gotta be present, ready for it. Here we go.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I know. And I think, we were just saying before we hit record, like there's a lot of internal pressure that we put on ourselves for live launches. Doesn't
Yeah.
have to be that way. That's totally like a choice that we're making for ourselves. But that's interesting to hear. I mean, I think it's always just nice to hear when even somebody as successful as you is like, I still deal with the same stuff.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
no matter what stage you're at in your business or how much money you've made or how many clients you have, it's still like we're all dealing with the same like mind trash.
Absolutely. And it's I can't even believe how I didn't know when I first started my business how important it is to deal with the mind stuff at
Hmm.
all times. Like if you would have told me 13 years ago, you will still feel like an imposter at times. You will still feel like you're not cut out to do this even after so much success in so many years. I'd be like,
Yeah.
No way." Oh, it's very real.
Yeah. Well, even I was just listening to your Crime Junkies episode on your podcast
Yeah.
right before this. And at the end of it, you say, like, man, I got to admit, like, I was really nervous going into that episode because she has 35 million downloads a month. I mean,
What?
that's like unfathomable. But
Yes.
yeah, and I was thinking, "Oh, well, I'm kinda nervous going into this interview, but it makes me less nervous knowing that, like, you also get nervous
Good.
because you're also a human."
Yeah, it's so true. We have to remind, especially the women, we got to stick together and remind each other like what we're feeling, what we're thinking, the good, bad, and ugly throughout this entire entrepreneurial journey to remind each other we are so not alone.
Yes, so not alone. Well, okay, so you're coming into, like well, you said you launched DCA 3 years ago, but I know before that you kinda had 2 courses that you made into 1. Am I remembering that right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay, so just can you tell us a little bit about, like, all of the iterations of your course model,
Yeah.
and like how DCA has evolved since you first launched it?
Yes, and I love this question. I don't typically get asked this. And what I love about it is because I think it can remind all of us that what we're doing now doesn't need to be set in stone forever. And there's
Yes.
so many iterations that and opportunities ahead of us, no matter if you're just starting out or you've been at it for a while.
Yeah.
So with Digital Course Academy, what had happened is I had a really successful course called Webinars That Convert. And that was one of my most successful courses I've ever done. And I launched it out into the world. People went through it. They learned how to do these amazing webinars. And then they'd say, okay, Amy, I'm ready, but I have nothing to sell on a webinar. What do I do now? I'm like, oh, okay. So then I created courses that convert to give some people something to actually sell. And so really, if in a perfect world, courses that convert would have came first and then webinars that convert, but it didn't happen that way. So then I have courses that convert and webinars that convert. I'm selling them individually and someone will create a course and they're like, how do I market it? Like, you have to buy my other product. Or I've done a webinar, but what do I sell? You have to buy my other product. I didn't love that feeling. And I knew both of them were essentially incomplete, but I
Mhm.
didn't know this in the beginning. And both of them did very well for the record. So you never know, even though you don't have it all figured out, you could still be successful.
Yep.
And then one day, one of my employees, she was really young and she just like kind of new to the team, and flippantly said, "You should combine those two courses." And I remember being, this is terrible of me, being so irritated, like, that's a big undertaking. Don't just throw out that idea like it's no big deal. She said it so
Yeah.
flippantly. And I was like,
You do
you should
it.
try to combine them. I
Yeah.
was like, oh gosh, maybe I should check myself. So after apologizing to her for being weird and snapping like that, I slept on it for a few days and I'm like, she's absolutely right. I need to
Mhm.
combine these two to make it a better experience and get bigger results for my students. So, took both courses, broke them fully down, re-engineered the entire outline of how this could look, went back into the studio, and I recorded the entire thing brand new, over starting from scratch, and it became Digital Course Academy of what it is today. And best decision I ever made, but dang, it was hard to get to that decision because it included so much. Like, it felt like such a big undertaking that
Yeah.
I was hesitant to do it. So glad I did. But now the Digital Course Academy that will be launching in early September, it has gone through multiple iterations. And when I say iterations, when you have a digital course, what you're really always looking for is, how do I make this easier for my students? How do I get them through the course quicker, with less effort, less overwhelm? So over the years, we've just dialed that in, dialed that in. And I feel like we've got the best product I've ever created. I
Yeah.
recently re-recorded the whole thing and I looked at my team and I'm like, holy cow, that is a really good course. It was just like, almost surprised me because I had to be reminded we put so much love and support into this thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, it has definitely been on a journey.
Yeah. Well, I asked that question because I just feel like people often, and myself included, we can take ourselves very seriously. We feel like what we decide today has to be what we do forever. So it has to be the perfect,
Yes.
best, most right decision. And it's so refreshing to hear that it's like, no, you tried one thing. It didn't even come in the right order. You still were able to have success. You were still able to evolve and make changes and keep your customers happy. Like, there's permission to evolve.
Permission to evolve. And it's such a beautiful thing to talk about because I don't think we talk about it enough. And two, when you're making decisions in your business, whether you're just started out or you're in the messy middle or wherever you are, to make a big decision and think you have to stick with it forever is very scary, which is probably why a lot of people don't take action. Because if
Yeah.
I do this one big thing, now I'm stuck with it. You're absolutely not. When I was first starting out, my very first digital course, when I didn't have an email list, I didn't know what the heck I was doing, was how to use social media to launch a book. Now, I had never launched a book in my life, so I should never have been teaching that. But I thought, oh gosh, this will allow me to like put me on the map and people will know what to come to me for. So I created this course and I made $267.
Woo!
So yeah, I was like, holy cow, I thought you make $100,000 because everyone else seemed to be making
Right.
tons of money. So I was super depressed, but also I should have not been teaching that. And so what I tell my students now is, you just need that 10% edge. You need to have gotten results for yourself or for somebody else, like a customer, a client, and you're willing to show that roadmap of how you got the results in your course. So the 10% edge means you're 10% ahead of those you serve. I created a course where I wasn't even 10% ahead. I just like studied it, but I didn't have results in it. And that's
Yeah.
where I had made the mistake. But from there, I learned, oh, I made a mistake here. Let's go back to the drawing board. The next course I created, I made a few $1,000s with it, and it was how to use social media in general to build a business. So
Mhm.
that's where I was definitely more well versed in that. And
Yeah.
then from there, I realized what people really want, because when you create something, your audience will tell you what to do next. They wanted Facebook marketing. So my first really successful course was all about how to do Facebook marketing. And then from there, how to do Facebook ads. And then from there, that's where webinars that convert and courses that convert came to be. I wouldn't have a multi-million dollar business I have today if I didn't allow myself to pivot, make some changes, evolve.
Yeah.
It's not like I was like chasing this shiny object and chasing that shiny object and getting way off course. I was just evolving, and there is nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Such a good lesson. And just, I think the 10% edge, I know we've talked about that before. And something that kind of reminds me of what you said too is that the point of, but you actually have to have gotten those results for yourself or somebody else. We talk about this a lot in my program too, which is like, being a product of your product. And so that like if you don't believe that you can get the results. So like we have in this example of we had a client who was wanting to create a course on helping women leave their 9 to 5 and start their own business, but she herself hadn't left her 9 to 5 yet.
Mhm.
And so she hadn't even gotten to the launch phase yet, but I just kept encouraging her to like maybe get that result for yourself first, because it's going to be so hard to sell that when your energy and your belief is like, well, I don't even know if I can do this.
Yes, that is so true. I had the exact same experience. A woman came up to me at a live event. She was a young woman. I loved her so much. She had great energy. And she said, I want to teach people how to, funny enough, leave their job by selling real estate, like flipping houses on the
Mhm.
side and taking those flipped houses, taking that revenue and leave your job. And I'm like, okay, great. So you've done that. She's like, no, I'm trying to. And right away, I had to give her the tough love.
Yeah.
Okay, wait till you do it and then you can put it all over the web like, look what I've done and here's my roadmap.
Right.
But when people hear that, they might be like, oh, okay, so I'm not ready for a course, I got to do all this stuff. No, no, you already have a course in you.
Right.
All of us have multiple courses in us, I have no doubt. And you have to look at what you've done in your life, both in your professional and personal life. There are results you have already gotten that can be a digital course. So you don't have to wait until you get somewhere. You've already gotten there, my friend. It's
Right.
just reminding yourself that just because you've done it and it might have felt easy or in your past doesn't mean other people don't want to know how you've done it. It's not easy to them. It doesn't come second nature to them. And
Right.
also, you definitely don't need years of experience or more certifications in order to be worthy of creating a course. I'm going to give you an example. Let's pretend that your best friend was a little out of shape for a long time. Like going up the stairs, she was out of breath, but she kind of got sick of feeling that way. So she decided to train for a marathon. And in 6 months, that woman went from being tired of going up the stairs to actually running a full blown marathon and doing an amazing job. And afterwards, you looked at her and you're like, holy cow, I want to do that. How did you do that? Tell me all the things. And you want to know her food plan, her habits, the tennis shoes she got, her plan, like how she figured out how to go from zero to a marathon. And she
Hmm.
starts to tell you all these things. There's not one point that you would have said, okay, wait, before you tell me all the things, are you certified in tennis shoes and how to pick out tennis shoes? Or
Right.
did you go to a nutrition class in order to know what to eat? No, she got the results that you want. She's someone you love and relate to and connect to. You want to learn from someone like that. That's how your
Totally.
students are going to feel as well. So I want
Right.
you all to remember that.
And like she didn't have to win the marathon. She didn't have
Right.
to run 20
Yes.
marathons. It's
Yes.
like she's like you always say, like a few steps ahead of somebody who's like, well, I've never run a marathon and that sounds totally daunting. Tell me all the
Tell me
things.
all the things. From
Yeah.
someone that might be unlikely to have gotten those results, that's even sexier to most people. Like,
Yeah.
oh, if you could do it, maybe I can too.
Totally, totally. It's so much more relatable than going like all the way to, yeah, the person who's like winning, Olympic marathons. You're like,
Right.
I'm probably not on the same level as needing to learn how
Exactly.
what their routine is.
So
Yeah.
true.
Okay, so something else you mentioned that I want to come back to is like your students telling you what they wanted and figuring out like your next thing from listening to that and get making every iteration was like making it easier for your students to get results. So one of the questions that I have on my list here is like, how do you build accountability into like a self-study course?
Mhm.
And how much personal responsibility do you as the course creator take in like you can't make somebody do the work. But there's this has been like a hot topic of
Yeah.
conversation in my world lately. So I'm very curious your thoughts on it.
This is such a great question. I'm going to go for the last one first and then go back to the
Yeah.
accountability. So, you are right. You cannot make somebody get the results that you're promising. And so, when you're a course creator, the thing that should allow you to take a deep breath and just relax around this topic is that there is only so much you can do. but you have a big responsibility. So, number one, you've already gotten the results in one way or another. So, you feel like you can lay out the roadmap. Check, that's on you. Number two, you're responsible for creating a course that literally does walk them through a roadmap so that they really understand each step that is necessary for them to get to the finish line. And the third thing, and something I teach all my students, and it's a very big part of Digital Course Academy, is how to get people to the finish line. What do they need to virtually handhold their experience so you can hold their hand through the experience to get them to the finish line? Do they need certain pep talks at certain times during the course? Do they need extra resources like PDFs and guides and cheat sheets to go along? Do they need a private member podcast where you take your videos, strip them down to audio, and now if they're on the go, they can listen to the audio so that they can get it done? There's so much as a course creator you can do to make the experience as easy and seamless as possible to help them get to that finish line. And I teach all of that in DCA because I think it's important to help your students get to the finish line.
Yeah.
But there's also another person involved, the student. They have to show up. They have to book time on their calendar. They have to do the work. And that is not your responsibility at that point. So you can feel great as a course creator. I delivered on my promise. And now I'm going to encourage them to keep going, but they're going to have to take agency over that. So there are always two people in this equation. And when I started to teach my students that, I noticed they kind of took a deep breath and they're like, okay, I can do my part for sure. I have hundreds and hundreds of success stories. So I know that doing your part as a course creator will absolutely encourage your students to get to the finish line. So you're a big part of that for sure.
Yeah.
The other thing that you mentioned was the accountability, especially in a self-study course. So when I think self-study course, I think you're not going live every single day or every single week even. Let's pretend you're not live at all in your course. You've
Mhm.
pre-recorded your videos. You're going to deliver them to every week or all at once, whatever you want to do. But what if they have questions? What if they get stuck along the way? There's a few things I teach my students to do. Number one is I love a good FAQ vault. And this is something that you can build up over time. But there's always a place in my courses where you can go to a page and you can keyword search questions you have. And every question in my written response will come up based on that search you've done. I have hundreds of questions I've answered because I've done the course for over 3 years. So
Right.
as I answer questions, now I put them in the vault. So over time, you're going to have a really robust vault that will totally support your students. So that's a big thing that you can do to keep them accountable.
And you
Another
use
thing,
Searchy for that?
yes.
Yeah.
So I love Searchy for this. It's such a great tool. So
Yeah.
that Searchy, this is okay. So let's talk about that for a second. For those of you who don't know, I do a lot of video Q&A in Digital Course Academy, but a lot of people can't make those live. So let's say you searched how to build an email list. All the videos where I mention one of those keywords will pop up instantly, and you can go to the place in my Q&A like 32 minutes in where I'm talking about list building. I think it's
Yeah.
like the coolest tool
It
ever.
is so cool.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
use Searchy, and then I also write out my responses so they can get written or video responses from me based on questions I've answered hundreds of times.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is that we always make sure that we allow people to get accountability partners. So we put up a one sheet and we say, here's how to get an accountability partner. If you want to apply for one, add your name to the spreadsheet. So we set
Mhm.
up the infrastructure, and then my students can then take control and say, if they want an accountability partner, I'll follow these guidelines and find one. Because I
Yeah.
think accountability partners make a big, big difference.
Yeah, that's such a good idea. But again, even that is something that it's like you can provide them the resource for accountability partners, but they have to be the ones to actually go in and do it, and pick
Yes.
one. Yeah.
Absolutely. So some people don't want an accountability partner and it's just not for them. Great. You've given them an opportunity and they can decide what's right for them.
Yeah. So along those lines, I'm curious like what live components you recommend including in your course these days. Like I think there's been a conversation too that's kind of been happening that maybe people got a little too self-study with their courses
Oh,
and then
yeah.
they started feeling like okay, my clients either aren't getting results or, aren't super satisfied.
Yeah.
So I feel like now people are creating kind of more hybrid models where there's some kind of live Q&A or a Facebook group or like we do critiques in our program so they
Oh,
actually like
that's good.
submit their work and we give them like a Loom video back to show them like this is what we'd recommend. What do you like to include or teach to to build in some of that kind of live support.
Yes, I love that. So I have an evergreen program that runs every single day, all about list building. And then Digital Course Academy is my live launch once a year. And in both, I offer a live aspect. And so let me break that down for you. So for my evergreen program, that it's an automated webinar selling into my course, people can buy it any time of day. When they get in there, one of the promises I make as a bonus is that once a month, they get a live Q&A, group live Q&A with me on Zoom, and they get 12 of them. So they get it for a full year, which is very attractive to my audience, knowing I'll be on the journey with them. And so I don't guarantee that I answer everybody's questions, but I get through a lot of questions in an hour.
Yeah.
And so I show up on Zoom once a month for anybody who is currently in Digital Course Academy, and they're in those 12 months of getting that Q&A. And it has worked out beautifully. We've done it for over a year, and basically every month they get a new Zoom link, and when it's 13 months and they don't get it anymore, they just won't get the Zoom link email, and we're all good to go. So we have it all
Gotcha.
dialed in.
Yep.
And
Smart.
then, so that works out really good, and I love that. I don't have a Facebook group for them. I don't have any other live aspect. They've got the Q&A vault, and we've had nothing but great feedback about that. So that's worked out well. And then with Digital Course Academy, I used to go live so this is a great conversation to have because I haven't talked about this a lot. In the past, I went live Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, every day for like 20 to 30 minutes. I usually always went over. My husband hated it because I
I'm
was
sure.
always on live video. And I did this for a few years. And the feedback I got, and I got to see the numbers, one, the same people kept showing up, but there weren't as many people that would show up for those lives. A lot would catch the replay. But even more importantly than who was on live and who was watching the replay was the students, and many students felt very pressured that they were missing all these lives.
Yeah.
And so they're like, I can't show up for that many lives. No matter that I said 100 times, just come when you need to come and I'll
Yeah.
be there. It didn't matter. They saw a live pop up in their Facebook feed or an email come through. They were missing yet another thing from my program.
Yeah.
And that did not feel good. So when I got enough issue around that, like I heard enough feedback, I'm like, no more, we're not doing that. So now I'll go live once or twice a week. And then we supplement. We've got a guy we call him our resident tech guy, Dave. And he's now going to do a live tech training once a week for anyone that gets hung up on the tech. So when you listen to your students over the years, they're going to tell you what they need more of. And it
Yeah.
might mean that you get to work actually less. It's easier for me to do less lives. And I think it's a really good fit for what they need. So
Yeah.
I do live Q&A. I'm just not doing as many because it overwhelmed my students. But there's other ways that you can show up for them. Like at the end of Digital Course Academy, we do a 2-day live virtual event. We used to do in person. Maybe one day we get to bring it back.
That was the best. I
Who
love
knows?
that event.
It was so fun. I really do miss being in person with everyone.
Yeah.
But there's so many different things that you can do. And I do agree with you that people are going more toward a hybrid model because people miss the interaction. We went through 2 years of not
Sure.
seeing each other ever. We need to show up for each other.
Yeah. And so that kind of brings me to another question. This is something that, one of my questions was like, what mistakes did you make when you first launched the course? And that, thinking about those kinds of things, what would you do differently? For me, one of them is offering lifetime access. I'm curious
Oh.
if that's still something that you offer and kind of why or why not.
Okay, so that's such a great question. I do offer lifetime access for all my courses. And the reason but with a caveat. So you're so many great topics. You could tell you're a good course creator because you know the questions to ask. So we do lifetime access, but one thing I had to get really clear with my students is that what that means is I want to make this clear, they get every time I update the program, the core program, they get that update. So that's a big perk for DCA. So I just re-recorded the whole thing. Any of my alumni will get that core program. But any new bonuses I add, that's for my new students. So they don't get all the bonuses forever and ever that I add. So we say the core program, if I update it, you get it. That's one thing we make clear in lifetime access.
Yeah.
Another thing is we make it clear, as long as I am delivering the program, you get access. And in the fine print, we say you will always have a full year into my program. But let's say I stop doing the program in a year. There will be no more new iterations. You don't get those, of course, they don't exist. And if I want to shut down all my sites, you can download all the content, have it forever. But there might be a day that I don't want to do this anymore. I can't imagine, but there could be. So I'm very clear. Now I don't explain all of that on a webinar. It's all in the like the fine print.
Sure.
But lifetime access means as long as I'm doing this program, you will always get access to it and at least a year. So to be fair, in case it ever ended, at least a year. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's what lifetime access looks like in our world. But I also know why some people don't do it. So I'd love to hear your reason why you don't offer it anymore.
Yeah. Well, I think we're very much on the same page with it, because my next question for you, which you answered, was going to be, how do you define lifetime access?
Yeah.
And one of the reasons this changed for me is because I used to have a program called the Six Figure Blog Academy. And I decided at the end of fall 2021, I was retiring the program. So I let everybody know. And I said, you have until December 2022.
Oh, wow.
So it was like over a year.
Yes.
Get in, download anything you need. You know, the program will go away and we're not selling it anymore. And so it was interesting because most people were like, cool, totally
Yeah.
understand. But of course, there's always like, you can't please
Always.
everybody.
No.
So there, we had some people that were really upset and they're like, this is lifetime access. And so it made me pause and think, well, what does lifetime access mean? And I thought, well, is it lifetime of the creator? Like, so as long as I'm alive, I have to keep
That's what I
paying.
thought. Am I going to be 80 years old rocking
Yeah,
on the porch and I'm creating courses for them? Like I got
right.
freaked out in the beginning. Yes.
Or even if you're not creating anything new, like, you still have to keep paying for
Yeah.
Kajabi or whoever
Yes.
you're hosting. And like, it's not free to have a platform
No.
that people can log into and, all that. So I was like, well, obviously it's not lifetime of me. It can't be lifetime of the buyer.
Right.
Everybody's, different. So I'm like, it is lifetime of the program. And I think I probably could have been more clear about that in my fine print when I had originally said lifetime access. But now we just like all of our programs. And like I said, we do more of a hybrid model now where we have like a course curriculum, but then it's a lot of live components. And so it's
Mm,
more of like a coaching program than a
gotcha.
straight course. But that is like, there's a container for it. And so even at the end of like our container right now is 12 months. So at the end of 12 months, if you want to stay in the program, of course, to continue getting like the live coaching and support that we do, but then also even access to the materials, like you have to pay again and like you can
Gotcha.
renew. And we have some, specials for people who are renewal clients. Um,
Smart. That's a good
yeah,
idea.
but yeah, it's been interesting. And I think it was a good lesson to me in first just being super clear about whatever your terms are so that it's like
Yes.
there is no question about it. Now, of course, most people don't read the fine print anyway.
It's
So
true. It's true. So it's always nice to have it there in case someone's like, "Hey, not fair," and you're like, "Okay, let me
yeah,
show you what this means." But I love that you brought up about the lifetime access because one of my most favorite parts of Digital Course Academy is this worksheet that I created with all these decisions that you wouldn't even know to
yeah,
make these decisions if someone who had gone before you didn't say, "Look, I've made a lot of mistakes along the
yeah,
way." And it's decisions like, will you offer live support at any time? What does your refund policy look like?
yeah,
Is it 30 days, 14 days? Do they need to do anything to get a refund? What does it look like in terms of if someone gets stuck or has questions? How are you going to address that? Will you have a Facebook group? When does the Facebook group start? When does it stop? Once you answer, when someone can guide you and say, these are all the things I messed up on, make these decisions now,
yeah.
you can take a deep breath and be like, okay, I've got those figured out. We're good. Let me focus on wowing my customers with my course. But there's a
Yeah.
lot of little things that once you make the decision, you're good. But a lot of people don't even know they need to make those
Yeah,
decisions.
it's totally a you don't know what you don't know situation when you're starting. So I love that you added that to DCA.
Yeah,
That's super smart to just help people be like, oh, I wouldn't have even thought about like needing a container or a policy
exactly.
either way.
Yes. Yes. Are
Yeah,
you going to drip the content or give it all at once? And when does the course actually start? And all
right.
that stuff just needs to be decided.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So switching gears a little bit, but on the same line of thought. Like we've been talking about kind of evolving changes. Like now it's 2022 at the time of this. I still am like, right? It's 2022. I'm still a little
I
off
know.
on my timeline. Yes. So do you feel like when does it make sense to do a course versus say a membership or another kind of similar model? Like how do you know a course is the way to go?
Ooh, I like this question. So, when I think about courses and memberships, as you know, we have a mutual friend, Stu McLaren, and he teaches everyone how to do memberships, and I teach courses. And we always say we go to together like peanut butter and chocolate because they just really go together well. And if I had my choice between courses and memberships, I'd say I want both. Like I think both work really well in a business. And here's how I typically teach my students how to decide. If you want to teach something where there's an obvious start and there's an obvious finish to something that you want to teach, here's
Mhm.
everything you need to do. And boom, once you hit there, you're out. Like for me, here's how to create a course from scratch and how to launch it. Once it's launched, you're good. You know how to do it. To me, that is a course because there's an obvious start and finish, and everything in between could be step by step by step. That
Mhm.
is in the beauty of a course, and why I'm probably more biased toward courses, obviously, is because I like a good start and finish, and I like to step back and take a breather.
Yeah.
As a course creator, I love to be involved in my students' experience, but after those 9 weeks, I'll take a step back and just do a relax a little bit so I can be really great for my students when I come back.
Yeah.
With a membership, that's something that if you want to teach something brand new every single month and enrich their lives and add value in different ways, and not everything has to go together. If this month you want to teach this one thing, the next month doesn't have to be build off the month you just taught. If
Right.
you feel like you want your content to be a bit more fluid, that could absolutely be a membership. Now, a lot of times people don't want to do a membership because you're on that hamster wheel of content creation. Every month you got to create. But for you and I know we both have batched in our businesses. And
Yeah.
if you can batch the content, you don't have to be on that hamster wheel. But
Yeah.
for me, what I do, I have both. So I have two digital courses on Evergreen. Then I have Digital Course Academy, which is my big, most popular course that I do once a year live. And then I have Momentum, which is my membership. And Momentum helps people implement and continue the journey of course creation and launching and making it something long term in their business.
Yeah.
So after you finish DCA, you get a private invite if you want to join me in Momentum. You can join, or if you want to skip, go ahead. But now I get to continue the journey. But you can only get into Momentum if you finish DCA, so that I'm not reteaching everything. I'm building off of what you've learned. I'm troubleshooting with you. I'm helping you to go to the next level. So I
Yeah.
love Momentum because it's people that are really serious about launching over and over again and getting really big results.
Yeah. I love that. So selfishly, I'm thinking like this is something that some of my friends and I, a lot of us took this one program together and then created a similar kind of business model, right? And then some of us were thinking like, well, should it be a membership instead of like a 12-month program? And it's not necessarily that like there's always something new every month, but there's always like new lives, new calls, like things, not necessarily new material.
Got
But
it.
I'm curious for even like Momentum, um, people can join and cancel at any time.
They can. So they
Yeah.
can join and cancel at any time. And that, there's so many different types of ways to do a membership. But let's say you had 12 months of what you might call a membership, and they have to enroll in 12 months. To me, that feels like a 12-month coaching program,
Right.
which feels different than a membership to me. So
Yeah.
for me, a membership, I think there'd be less hand holding, less coaching, less in there,
Yeah.
more around the content you're delivering every week.
Yeah.
But so there, and this is the beauty of being an entrepreneur and owning your own business. You get to decide and create what
Yeah.
works best for you. You can call it whatever you want, but I love that we can kind of do iterations of each of the different things
Yeah.
that we learn. Like there
Yeah.
have been people that got into Digital Course Academy and they've had great success, made tons of money, but they haven't done it exactly how I teach it. They put their
Right.
own spin on it. It's like a hybrid of a membership and a course and a little bit of a mastermind, and they just figure out what works best for them. And
Yeah.
I will support them all day long because at the end of the day, that's what makes being an entrepreneur so freaking fun.
Yeah. My friend Latisse always says it's all made up. And I love that because it's like, It is like, we're all just making it up, figuring out like what works for us. Like, I also always say like everything works. Like there's for everybody that's like, social media is the worst, which I'm always saying that, but it's like, there's other people who are like, social media is my whole business. Like without it, I would have nothing. And it
Yes.
works for them. It doesn't work for me. And like, some people might say blogging doesn't work for them. And I'm like, no, blogging is my jam. Like that's my thing. It all works. You just have to figure out what works for you. And I think I'm kind of one of those students of yours I came in, I did everything exactly the way that you said to do at first, because I'm always like, well, I paid you to tell me what to do, so I better take
I'm
your
more like that
advice.
too. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I start iterating and evolving and going like, okay, this is what I liked and what I didn't, what felt good. This is my lifestyle, my goals, my desires, those sort of things. And like evolving again, theme coming
Yes.
back to that. So yeah.
So true.
Okay. So we're coming up on the end here. One question I have that I think might be an important one, especially heading into DCA, is when does a course, oh, sorry, no, I'm asking you the wrong question. The question I wanted to ask you is there ever a niche or a type of person who absolutely should not do a course?
Ooh, I've never been asked this before. Is there ever a niche or a type of person who should not do a course? I would say absolutely not. I feel like because I've seen so much, I've seen so many courses that have succeeded based on so many different topics that you would never believe. Some I can't even, are inappropriate that I can't even say here, like in a whole different world that I'm like, oh, that worked? Okay,
Yeah.
great. But then all different walks of life from different experiences. I've seen it all. So I can say with absolute certainty that everybody has a course or two in them, and you can turn anything into a course. But you do sometimes have to get creative, because here's an example. One of my students, she teaches how to overcome sexual trauma. And that is not a topic that a lot of people want to discuss publicly. So they're not going to tell their whole story on an Instagram comment or something like that.
Right.
And so she has to get creative in terms of how she brings people into her world. So she says, Amy, I can't do a Facebook group with all of my students airing all their stories. So she'll do something like Voxer, where if some people want to talk to her during the course, they can privately message her. So she's tweaked her program so that it's not so public and outward, but it works for her. So I really do believe you have to tweak the course to make it work for you and your students, but anything will work in a digital course, and any niche will work.
Love it. Well, this was super fun. As always, you always have great answers and get me thinking about new ways of doing things. So thanks for coming again. I'm super excited for everyone to listen to this and check out Digital Course Academy this round. It seems like it's going to be the best yet.
The best yet. So thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. All right. So end scene.
And scene.
Okay. So let's see. I'm like looking at my list of questions too, going, did I not get to anything that was super important? Was there anything you wanted me to ask you or like about DCA
No, those
or?
questions were so good. Are you going to, when does this go live? Like, will you be promoting the boot camp or the
Yes.
masterclass or, okay.
So yeah, and we're republishing the two other episodes we did
Cool.
last year and the year before. So
Okay.
we have like a little, course series coming up. So this one
Fun.
is scheduled to air on September 8th.
Okay,
Is that
great.
right? That seems early.
September 8th. So that would
A
be,
week before cart close is what my notes say
yeah.
here.
So the cart's already open and we're one day in. So they probably, based on anything else you publish, are have already gotten on the webinar.
Right. So for
Cool.
this one, I think we'll do a CTA that's just like, let's talk about Digital Course Academy. But then while I have you here, I'd love to also do one for the boot camp because we're going to use that in other episodes
Okay, cool. All
previous
right,
to
great.
this one. Okay. So I have notes here. I'm just going to copy and paste this in the comments in case it's helpful for you to just see.
Okay.
Oops, why won't that? Oh, it's too long. This is what you said last year on our thing. I'm going to have to do it in little chunks here. So bear with me for a second. If you feel like this is still exactly the same, we don't need to change anything, then we don't need to re-record this and we can just use it again.
Oh,
Um,
this is exactly what I'd say. I was like, "So, this sounds good." I said "so" way too many times, but yes, this is exactly how I explain it.
That's funny. Yeah, yeah, sorry, this is just transcript
Oh my gosh, I can't believe how
robots.
many times I say "so." This is the first time I knew that, so it's really great to know. But yes, this absolutely works.
Okay, so nothing we want to add or take away for this year's version.
No, because I didn't change major framework of the course. So everything
Yeah.
big picture still stays the same.
Okay, cool. And I hope that some of the questions that I asked, like I wanted it to be things that course creators would be thinking about, but also that would be like, we teach this in Digital Course
Yeah, I
Academy.
that's why I felt like it went so well. You totally set me up for that.
Okay, good,
Absolutely. Yes.
good, good. Okay. So then for the boot camp, for the first time this year, boot camp. Okay, so I don't really have a script written. I just have the details of the boot
Yes.
camp.
You want me to
So
talk about it?
yeah,
Okay.
and I'll just let you go right into it, and then when I record the intro and outro, I'll do my own like intro to your boot camp thing, if that works.
Perfect. Okay.
Okay.
And I'm on camera for this, right? Like look at the camera.
Yeah, I
Okay.
guess so. You're on camera for the podcast interview for the CTAs. We might
Just
as
in
well,
case.
just
Okay.
in case.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. So just go for it.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm really excited for this year's boot camp. It's called Course Confident. And what I've done is I want to help people get their feet wet with courses. If they've thought about creating a course, they want to experiment a little bit, they're thinking maybe this could be a side gig or a full-time thing, but they're not 100% sure. And if you want to know if you and your business are right for a digital course, the boot camp is exactly what you want to get into. It's only $47, so it's the cheapest thing that I offer. And I'll be doing live training, starting with how to choose the best course topic that is perfect for you and your business and your personality and your experience and know-how. And then we're going to get into the type of course you should create, which then will determine how much content you should put into this course. And you can then decide how long it will take you to create. And from there, how to price a course. Like how much money could you make with a course? What might this look like? I love playing with a little course math, and we're going to get into that for sure. And then I'm going to talk about growing your audience with the right people who will eventually buy the course from you. So we always have to talk about list building, and there will be some of that as well. All my trainings are live. I do a bunch of Q&As. It's really interactive. It's a really short period of time to know if you want to jump into courses or not. So it's a perfect place to start.
Awesome. Were you reading that from something that was like,
No.
wow,
Okay, good. It
you
sounded
know your own shit.
You know, a lot of people think I read everything, and I'm like, you guys, I promise I don't read it all. But
No,
I
I
am
don't
very
think you read
serious in my
everything,
head.
but that was just like, I think even if it was my own thing, I would still be like, wait, what is it again? I need to like see some details. So
That's so
that was
good.
awesome. Perfect. Okay. So I think that's it from me. One thing I wanted to tell you at the beginning, I'll stop recording now too.